Most people start their mornings reacting, rushing, worrying, but the few who win, they begin with intention. Before the world grabs their mind, they claim it. One small act, repeated daily, separates the scattered from the powerful. It doesn't take hours, just a choice, a ritual, a decision to lead your day before it leads you. In a few moments, I will teach you how to take control of your life by mastering one morning habit. Wake with purpose before the world wakes up. Before the birds stir, before the sun rises, before the world has its say, you must rise. Not to rush, not to scramble, but to own your moment. Most people open their eyes with no plan. They wait for the day to happen to them. But you're not most people. The moment you wake, you are at a crossroads. You can drift into another ordinary day, or you can command the day like a general stepping into battle. But here's the truth. If you wake without a mission, you surrender your power before you've even stood up. What does this mission look like? It's not loud, it's not grand, it's silent, internal. It starts by asking, what am I here to do today? Not what must I do, but what do I choose to build? Take 5 minutes, sit up in bed. Don't move until you've spoken purpose into your day. Today I advance. Today I endure. Today I rise no matter what tries to stop me. This simple act rewires your spirit. It conditions your mind to follow your will, not the other way around. Imagine a man who wakes before his children, before the factory bell rings, before his fields need tilling. He doesn't rush. He doesn't complain. He stands at the window, speaks his aim for the day, and then marches toward it. Will you wake and wonder what the day holds, or will you wake and tell the day what it will be? Confront the mirror and command your standard. When the world hasn't spoken yet, you stand in front of the mirror, not to see your reflection, but to face your standard. Who you are meets who you said you'd be. This moment matters more than people realize. Most walk past their mirror and avoid its stare. But every morning you must stop. Look yourself in the eye. Ask, am I becoming the man or woman I promised I'd become? You see, it's not the world that holds you back. It's not your job, not your family, not your surroundings. It's the quiet agreements you've made to stay the same. You tell yourself, maybe tomorrow I'll change. But the mirror knows better. So you stand still, you hold your gaze, and you say, today I set my tone. I don't wait to feel strong. I declare I am strong. I don't wait to feel motivated. I decide I am ready. Here's the secret. Confidence doesn't come after success. It comes before. It's earned in these silent declarations, repeated until belief becomes instinct. Think of the man in overalls rubbing sleep from his eyes. He looks into his cracked mirror, nods once, and steps into the world with his head held high, not because of who he is, but because of who he's becoming. Now ask yourself, when you look in the mirror tomorrow, will you speak power or excuse? Move your body before doubt wakes up, before hesitation arrives, before your mind reminds you of yesterday's failures. Move. You weren't designed to sit idle and think your way into greatness. You were built to act, to engage, to move blood before you move ideas. Most people wait. They say, well, let me wake up a little. But the longer you wait, the heavier the body becomes. And with it, your courage, your discipline, your clarity. The moment you put your body into motion, you remind yourself, you are not helpless. You are not stuck. You are not some fragile thing that needs to be careful. You are capable. You are alive. And movement is proof. It doesn't need to be a grand display. Stretch, walk. You're not building muscle. You're building certainty. You're telling your spirit, I go when it's hard. I go when I don't want to. I go. Imagine a man on a cold wooden floor, shivering as dawn breaks. He doesn't wait for comfort. He drops to the ground and starts counting. Not just reps, but reasons to rise. So ask yourself, are you moving because you feel ready, or do you move to become ready? Write down one bold, specific goal for the day. Too many people live in circles, busy but directionless. They check boxes but build nothing. That's because they never decide what matters. They never write it down. And what you don't write, you won't do. Each morning, write down one bold, specific goal. Not 10, not 5, one. One action that, if completed, would move your life forward. Why one? Because one done task outweighs 100 intentions. Because when everything matters, nothing does. This goal isn't about ease, it's about progress. It might be writing 3 pages, making a hard call, solving one nagging problem, whatever it is. It should matter. It should stretch you. And you should write it in ink, not just in thought. Imagine a craftsman pulling out a single piece of wood each morning, placing it on the bench and saying, this is today's work. He doesn't think about tomorrow's chair. He focuses on shaping today's cut. That's what builds mastery. So grab your notebook or tear a page from yesterday. Write your aim, then stare at it until it feels like a vow. The question is, will you let the day dictate your direction, or will you choose where to strike first? Speak gratitude before you speak complaint. Every morning you step into the arena of life, and the very first words you choose, before the world hears them, become the drumbeat of your day. Most people open their eyes with a sigh, a groan, a complaint, too early, too tired, too much. And just like that, they hand their energy to defeat before the day has even begun. They speak weakness, and weakness becomes their identity. But you are not average. You were not made to live on your knees. You were made to rise with purpose, with force, with direction. The secret is this: your words are not just sounds. They are seeds. What you plant first thing in the morning grows. And most people are planting weeds. They let the discomfort of the hour set the tone. They forget the mind is a battlefield and every complaint is a surrender. But power comes when you do the opposite, when you speak gratitude before complaint, strength before struggle, vision before fear. This is not about being soft or blindly optimistic. It's about discipline, precision, intensity. You don't say, "I'm thankful for life," and move on. You say, "I'm thankful my lungs are strong enough to breathe. I'm thankful my scars didn't break me. I'm thankful that even if I've failed 1,000 times, I woke up with one more chance to fight." These are not affirmations, they are declarations. Weapons forged in silence, power spoken into motion. Picture a man waking in darkness. His body hurts, his past haunts him. The weight of the world is already pressing against his shoulders. But instead of complaining, he sits up and says, "Thank you." Not because he's comfortable, not because it's easy, but because he understands one truth. The fight is not over. He's still breathing, still moving, still becoming. And that alone is enough to be dangerous. You don't need everything to start strong. You need the right focus. If you begin the day counting your weapons, your grit, your breath, your hope, your hands, you rise with a different spirit. The world doesn't shape you, you shape the world. But if you start the day counting your wounds, your lack, your doubts, then you fight with a limp you gave yourself. Every morning is a battle between fear and faith, between comfort and courage. So ask yourself, before you speak, are you reinforcing the version of you that's tired, small, and afraid, or the version that is rising, ready, and unbreakable? The answer is always in the words, review your vision, not the news. Each morning, before the noise of the world has a chance to invade, you stand at a threshold. And whether you realize it or not, that threshold is sacred. It's the gate between your inner world and everything external, the drama, the deadlines, the doubts and distractions. If you leave that gate unguarded, chaos walks in without knocking. The first message you allow to enter your mind becomes the seed from which your entire day grows. And for most people, that seed is sour. They wake up and reach for a newspaper. They absorb headlines soaked in fear, complaints dressed as conversation, or digital noise screaming urgency over clarity. The moment they consume that first negative input, they surrender their agency. They are no longer leading the mind. They are being led by someone else's fears, someone else's focus, someone else's noise. But you were not built to be an echo. You were built to create, to lead, to architect something greater. And architects do not begin a day by reacting. They begin by consulting the blueprint. That blueprint is your vision, the picture of the life you are building brick by brick. If you do not see that blueprint first thing in the morning, you will forget why the struggle matters. You will lose clarity on what you are building. And worst of all, you'll spend the day constructing someone else's project while your own foundation crumbles quietly beneath you. You must make it a ritual. Before the world intrudes, take 3 minutes. Sit in silence. Let the mind settle like dust after a storm. Pick up your vision, not as a distant dream, but as a present instruction. Read the goals you've written, not passively, but with belief. Speak one line aloud, a line that lifts you, that sharpens you, that reminds you of the reason behind every discipline you carry. Maybe it's, "I am a builder of strength," or "I command my fate," or "I move toward wealth with discipline." These are not affirmations. They are declarations, weapons, shields. They are how you armor your mind before battle. Picture a man sitting in a dim kitchen. The morning is cold, but he doesn't complain. He opens a worn notebook, the same one he's filled with hopes, plans, and truths. He reads his dream again, not because he's unsure, but because repetition turns belief into reality. He steps into the day, not with noise, but with direction. So ask yourself, what enters your mind first, your purpose or someone else's panic? Eliminate one excuse you made yesterday. There is a subtle force that eats away at greatness, not with fire, not with fury, but with quiet permission. It is the habit of making peace with excuses. It disguises itself in soft language. I was too tired. I didn't feel like it. It wasn't the right time. These phrases seem harmless, almost reasonable, but they are not. They are the first cracks in the dam, the quiet surrender of your power. And the moment you allow even one to pass without confrontation, you've begun to train your mind that it's acceptable to retreat when pressure arrives. Excuses are not just delays. They are lies in disguise. They are masks for comfort dressed up as reasons. And here's the truth. The more often you allow them to slide, the deeper they burrow into your identity. You tell yourself, I couldn't help it enough times. And soon you begin to believe you're the kind of person who can't follow through, the kind of person who always falls short. And that is a dangerous shift, because once a weakness becomes part of your self-concept, it controls you. You stop trying to overcome it and start defending it. But that is not your path. You are not here to defend weakness. You are here to defeat it. And that requires a daily practice not of motivation, but of inspection. Each morning you must turn on the light, go back to the previous day. Expose one excuse that you gave yourself. Don't ignore it. Don't sugarcoat it. Write it down. Look it in the eye. I didn't finish because I was distracted. I skipped the hard task because it felt overwhelming. I wasted time talking about the goal instead of working on it. Then ask yourself the hard question. Is this who I am? Or is this who I've allowed myself to become? That question alone draws a line in the sand, and once it's drawn, you get to choose which side you stand on. Will you let that excuse stand as truth? Or will you destroy it and replace it with power? Now take the next step. Turn that awareness into a vow, not a wish, a vow. Wishes float, vows root. They bind you to action. Declare it clearly and simply. Today I will work uninterrupted for 2 hours. Today I complete the task before I speak of tiredness. Today I finish what I start, no matter how I feel. These are not empty promises. These are weapons, forged in self-respect, swung in daily battle. This single habit of confronting and eliminating one excuse per day is like a craftsman who sharpens his blade each morning before he strikes. He doesn't ask if the blade is dull, he assumes it is, because use causes wear. He sharpens anyway, because a dull edge left unchecked becomes useless. So it is with the mind. Now picture this. A man sits quietly at a table. Before him lies a list of things left undone, calls unmade, pages half written, promises delayed. He takes a pen, circles one item, and says aloud, "No more excuses." He doesn't wait for inspiration. He doesn't negotiate. He simply chooses to finish what weakness once interrupted. That one act changes the tone of his entire day. So the question is not whether you have excuses. You do. We all do. The question is what you'll tolerate today. Will you let excuses run the show, or will you rise above them, one by one, until they no longer define you? Because each time you destroy an excuse, you elevate your life. Set a standard for your energy. How you show up matters more than where you show up. That simple truth separates the powerful from the passive, the builders from the drifters. The world loves to talk about location, what city you live in, what room you walk into, what company you work for. But the real secret? Success is not rooted in location. It's rooted in presence. It's not where you are. It's who you are when you arrive. You don't command a room by standing in it. You command a room by owning how you enter it. And that command doesn't start at the door. It begins long before. It starts the moment you rise. The moment your eyes open, the game begins. Most people move like leftovers, tired, reactive, resigned. They slump from bed to routine without a trace of intention. They let the day pull them instead of deciding to pull the day. But you must be different. You must move before you're moved. Because energy doesn't appear by accident. It's generated. It's cultivated. It's chosen. You cannot expect to bring presence to a meeting if you have not brought power to your morning. And that power is built in small, invisible choices. Do you lie there waiting for motivation? Or do you swing your feet off the bed and decide to move with strength? Do you walk slowly, half awake, dragging through the day's beginning? Or do you breathe with control, straighten your spine, and step with purpose? You are training yourself moment by moment. and every motion either adds to your intensity or subtracts from it. Energy is not just about feeling good. It's not about hype. It's about presence, clarity, direction. It's a discipline, and just like any muscle, it must be trained. Strength doesn't appear from comfort. It comes from consistent, deliberate demand. You don't wait to feel confident. You act with confidence until it grows. You don't wait to be ready. You prepare yourself until readiness is who you are. If you don't consciously cultivate this energy, the world will cultivate it for you. And the world's default setting is fatigue, distraction, scattered thought, empty movement. If you allow that to seep in, you'll start your day behind, and every room you walk into will feel heavier than it should. But if you choose your energy deliberately, if you stand tall even when no one sees, if you speak with intention even when it's just to yourself, if you move with control even through routine, then you walk into rooms differently. You carry yourself like someone who knows why they're there, and that presence is unmistakable. Picture a man walking into a small, ordinary shop. His clothes are plain, his steps are quiet. But when he enters, heads turn, not because he demands attention, but because he doesn't. His posture is precise, his breath steady, his eyes clear, and the room reacts, not to his words, but to his energy. It's calm but strong, silent but sharp. He radiates direction, not noise. Why? Because he trained it. He decided it. He didn't wait for the world to offer energy. He brought it. That's the kind of presence that shifts outcomes. And it starts long before the moment of performance. It starts in solitude. It starts in your room, in your hallway, in your mirror. It starts in the discipline of choosing how you move, how you stand, how you breathe. Even when no one's watching, ask yourself, do you drift into your day with whatever feeling shows up first, or do you command it? Do you wait for the mood to arrive, or do you create the mood with movement, posture, focus? You do not need a spotlight to build presence. You do not need a crowd to train intensity. You need only a moment and a decision to show up like it matters, because it does. You're not just walking into rooms, you're walking into destiny, into decisions, into battles and breakthroughs that require you to bring your full self, not a diluted version shaped by convenience. So tomorrow, before the world makes a single demand of you, make one of yourself. Show up before you're called. Build your energy before you're tested. Carry your presence before you speak. That is how leaders move. That is how power walks in. Not with noise, but with decision. Practice one act of mental resistance. The strongest people in the world don't always wear their strength on their sleeves. They don't always move with noise or boast about their power. Their strength lies deeper, in a place no one sees. It's in their ability to say no. Not just once, but over and over again. Not now. That simple phrase, spoken to desire, is the foundation of inner power. Because true strength is not the ability to lift something heavy, it's the ability to resist something tempting, the discipline to delay pleasure, the mental fortitude to stay the course when comfort whispers detours. Each morning, before the world makes its demands, you must train that strength. Not with noise, not with grand declarations, but with a quiet act of resistance. Something small, something simple, something that reminds your body that you are in charge. Take your coffee black, even if you prefer it sweet. Finish your reading before you eat. Step into your work before you open your mouth. These are not punishments. They're not self-denial. They're proof. Proof that you are not a slave to your impulses. Proof that your mind responds to command, not craving. Proof that you are the master of your own momentum. Why does this matter? Because temptation is everywhere. And it never arrives dressed as danger. It comes dressed as ease, as justice once, as you deserve it. It doesn't break the strong all at once. It chips away at them piece by piece. The man who cannot say no to sugar, to sleep, will never be able to say yes to the demands of greatness, because greatness doesn't come gently. It demands sacrifice, precision, focus. And these traits are born from daily decisions made in silence. Imagine a young man. The alarm rings at 5 a.m. The room is dark. The air is cold. And every cell in his body begs him to return to warmth, to delay, to hit snooze and try again later. But instead, he throws off the blanket, places his feet on the floor, and whispers, "I said 5 a.m., so I rise at 5 a.m. That single act seems small, insignificant, but it's not. It is a declaration, a line drawn, a message to his mind. We don't bow to mood. We honor our word. This is how strength is built, not in crowds, not in chaos, but in early hours when the only witness is your own reflection. You don't need applause for these moments. You don't need anyone to understand, because these small resistances stack. Each one is a brick in your mental fortress. And one day, when a real storm comes, when temptation doesn't feel like sugar but feels like betrayal, failure, distraction, collapse, you will be ready. Not because you trained in battle, but because you trained before the battle. You don't win your life by reacting to everything that arrives. You win it by deciding who you are before the test comes. You build your code and you live by it. You make your vow and you protect it. You set your standard and you reinforce it. That's how warriors move. That's how leaders rise. They don't need motivation to do what's right. They need only a reminder of what they promised themselves. So ask yourself, what resistance will you practice today? Will you deny the first urge to reach for comfort? Will you walk one more lap when your legs ache? Will you delay speaking until your words are necessary? These are the questions that sharpen you. These are the choices that harden your will, not into stone, but into steel. Flexible, durable, unbreakable. The strongest version of you is not built by chance. It's built by challenge. Not the kind that life throws at you, but the kind you choose to throw at yourself. So every morning, give yourself a task to resist. One quiet battle. One invisible victory. Not because you have something to prove to the world, but because you must prove daily that your word means more than your move. That is the path to power. Not a loud one, but a chosen one. Speak one sentence that embodies your identity. Every day you become a little more of what you speak. Not in theory, not in metaphor, but in fact. Words are not just sounds floating into space, they're seeds. And the mouth is the soil. What you say takes root. It creates momentum. It becomes the track. Your thoughts, actions, and outcomes will follow. That's why what you say in the morning is not trivial. It's not small. It's sacred. Most people speak without awareness. They wake up and immediately say things like, I'm tired, I'm behind, I can't do this today. And then they step into a day that seems heavy, slow, unclear. But it's not the world that made it so. It's the script they wrote at sunrise. They spoke defeat before they even met resistance. They surrendered before the battle began. But the wise, the builders, they speak with intention. They don't wait to feel confident to speak powerfully. They speak powerfully to become confident. They speak not to describe what they feel, but to direct where they're going. They say things like, I am the kind of man who finishes what he starts, or I am the kind of woman who meets discomfort with fire. These words are not just affirmations. They are identity statements. They don't ask the world for permission. They declare who they are becoming. That declaration is everything, because if you don't define yourself, the world will do it for you. It will name you by your failures, your weaknesses, your past, and the world's labels are always too small, too shallow, too soft. So before the world even gets a chance, you must speak. Speak not about who you were yesterday or how you feel in this moment, but about who you are becoming. Speak like the person who is already there. Not out of delusion, but out of decision. One sentence, spoken aloud, daily, that's all it takes. But it must be sharp, it must be strong, it must be yours. It has to pierce through doubt and cut through fatigue. It must be more than noise. It must be a sword. One that lives not just in your mind, but in your spine. Something you can reach for when the day pushes back. Something you can lean on when you feel the old habits creeping in. This is not about pretending you're never tired or never overwhelmed. It's about choosing what truth you want to magnify. You can tell yourself you're stuck, or you can tell yourself you're learning. You can say, I can't, or you can say, I'm not there yet, but I'm coming. You can say, it's too hard, or you can say, I'm built for hard things. The words may be small, but the shift is massive, because eventually you begin to live by what you speak. Your identity rewires around it. Your decisions echo it. Your habits reinforce it, and your results reflect it. Not overnight, but surely. So the question is not just what words you say. The question is, what kind of person do you keep becoming each time you speak? If your words were bricks, what kind of house are you building? If your words were fuel, where are you driving yourself? If your words were weapons, who are you arming? Your future self or your fears? You don't need the world to chant your name. You don't need crowds to believe in you. You need a mirror, a voice. and a sentence that refuses to break no matter how hard the day becomes. Choose it wisely. Speak it clearly. Repeat it until your actions catch up. And never forget, you are always becoming. So make sure you're becoming stronger every time you speak. Choose what you will endure today. Every day greets you with challenges, and the world makes no promises of ease. The winds of difficulty blow whether you like it or not. Pain will come, fatigue will test you, frustration will knock. But what separates the strong from the stagnant is not the absence of pain, it's the decision to choose which pain to face. You don't control whether pain visits, but you do control whether it breaks you or builds you. Most people rise each morning and carry a silent hope in their chest. Let today be easy. They pray not for strength, but for softness, not for growth, but for comfort. And that hope, though it feels innocent, is quietly destructive. Because comfort does not make you stronger. It softens your edges. It lulls you into delay. It convinces you that greatness will come without grit. But greatness never arrives on a gentle road. The strongest among us don't pray for ease. They don't beg for softness. They pick their pain. Because they understand, if you don't choose your struggle, life will assign you one. And it will never be the one that sharpens you. It will be the kind that drains you. Regret, guilt, wasted time, lost years. That's the pain of avoidance. And it's far heavier than the pain of discipline. So each morning becomes a question of character. What pain am I willing to face today? And for what reward? Will you face the ache of rising early when every fiber wants 5 more minutes? Will you face the sting of staying silent when your pride demands to lash out? This is not masochism. This is maturity. It's the wisdom to understand that short-term discomfort, when chosen wisely, becomes long-term power. And every time you endure what most people avoid, you separate yourself, you elevate, you build grit, not in grand moments, but in daily decisions. Endurance is not just a trait, it is a contract with greatness. It is your signature on the promise, I will not run when it hurts. I will stand. I will choose the fire that forges me, not the one that burns me for nothing. You say to yourself, I will suffer early, so I do not suffer late. I will endure now, so I can rest when the mission is complete. Picture a man walking out into the fields before dawn. The frost bites. His back is sore, his fingers stiff, his breath fogs in the cold air. And yet, he smiles. Not because it's easy, but because it's chosen. Because he understands that no harvest comes without this morning's pain. Every ache in his body is currency. Every step into the frozen field is an investment, and the return will not come today, but it will come. His life always rewards those who stay when it's hard. The same is true in every field, in business, in health, in relationships, in character. If you want to grow, you must plant. And planting always hurts. It demands effort, repetition, silence, waiting. It demands you push through what your body resists and your mind negotiates. But in return, it offers fruit that only a few will ever taste. Too many suffer by accident. They suffer because they didn't prepare, because they avoided the workout, the conversation, the discipline, and now they suffer regret, weakness, doubt. That is unnecessary suffering. That is suffering without reward. You are not here for that. You are here to suffer with purpose, to endure on purpose, to feel the sting of resistance, not as punishment, but as a signpost. A reminder, this is where most people quit, and this is where you separate yourself. So tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, make your choice. Decide what you are willing to endure. Say it to yourself out loud, not as a complaint, but as a commitment. I will endure the cold of the early morning. I will endure the silence of unseen work. I will endure the burn of pushing through the hard thing, not because it feels good, but because it leads somewhere great. Let the world chase comfort. Let them pray for ease, but not you. You're not here for an easy life. You're here for a powerful one. A life built on decisions, not default. On will, not wish. And when the day tests you, as it surely will, stand tall, look it in the eye and say, I chose this. Because when you choose your suffering, it cannot own you. When you face your pain with purpose, it cannot stop you. So I ask you one final question, and answer it with your actions, not your words. What pain are you willing to face today to become who you were born to be? Remember the oath you took with yourself. There was a moment, perhaps in the dead of night, when the world was asleep and you were wide awake with fire in your chest, that you said enough. A quiet but powerful vow. No applause, no witnesses, just you and your own truth. Maybe it came after pain, after disappointment, after looking at a version of yourself you could no longer accept. Maybe it came not in anger, but in stillness. You looked yourself in the mirror and made a silent oath. I will rise above this. I will not keep living like this. I will change. But time has a way of dulling even the sharpest vows. The intensity you felt in that moment fades under the weight of routine. You wake up one morning and realize that vow, the one that once meant everything, has become a whisper buried under comfort, convenience, and noise. You remember it vaguely, like a dream that once moved you but now feels distant. That is why every morning, without fail, you must revisit that promise. Not just remember it as a nostalgic memory, but relive it. Go back to the why. Go back to that moment you swore you would no longer live small, no longer break under the same excuses, no longer tolerate the same habits that were quietly destroying you. You didn't make that vow out of emotion. You made it because you saw clearly. And clarity is rare. When it comes, you must build your life around it. What did you swear to change? Was it the way you gave in too easily to distraction? The way you let fear decide your future? Did you promise you'd stop letting anger control your responses? Stop playing the victim? Stop shrinking to fit into spaces that never respected your worth? Did you say, I will never go back to that weakness? Did you whisper, this time I finish? Those words were not light. They came from your soul. Write it again. Speak it again. Not because you forgot, but because repetition carves belief, and belief fuels discipline. Discipline keeps you steady when motivation fades, and motivation always fades. Most people treat promises to themselves like passing weather. They say things like, this is the last time, but the next time comes easily. They say, I'm done, but continue the same cycles. They treat their own word like it's negotiable. But you cannot afford that, because when you break a promise to yourself, you fracture the foundation of your own strength, and every time you do it, your mind remembers. It learns that your word can't be trusted. It stops believing you. And once your own belief in yourself cracks, the world will sense it and reflect it back to you. You must treat your vow like sacred ground, something no one else needs to understand, but something you protect with your entire being. Because that promise was not just about action. It was about identity. It was about becoming someone who doesn't quit when it's hard, who doesn't retreat when it's inconvenient, who doesn't abandon the mission because comfort showed up wearing the mask of self-care. Picture a craftsman in a quiet workshop. The light is dim. The air is still. Every morning, before he begins his work, he sharpens his blade, slowly, carefully, and with each stroke he repeats the same sentence under his breath. I promised I'd become better. That promise doesn't make the work easier, but it makes it worth it. It gives direction to every small decision. That's how excellence is built, not by chance, but by recommitting daily to the same vow others would have abandoned. You once took an oath when no one was watching. It wasn't for show. It wasn't for anyone else's approval. It was born from pain, clarity, and vision. Don't let convenience erase it. Don't let time make you passive. That promise still lives, but it needs your breath to keep it alive. So ask yourself honestly, have you kept your word, or have you traded it for comfort? Are you moving in the direction you swore you would go, or have you softened the edges of your ambition to make room for ease? It is not too late to return. It never is. Even if the path is overgrown, even if your muscles are sore from delay, even if your spirit feels tired, pick up the promise. Dust it off. Speak it again. Let it remind you who you are and what you refuse to become. There is no one more powerful than the person who honors their own word. Be that person again. Be the one who returns to the fire. Not once, not twice, but every day until the life you swore to build is no longer a promise, but your reality. Visualize the struggle, then walk into it. Success does not arrive by accident, nor does it belong to those who hide from difficulty. It belongs to those who face it deliberately, directly, and early. You don't succeed by avoiding the hard parts. You succeed by attacking them while your energy is sharp, your mind is clear, and your spirit is willing. That window is brief. Most miss it. They wake with intention, but trade it for distraction. And by the time they return to the task that matters, their will has thinned and their strength has scattered. That is the quiet theft of delay. The most common mistake is to believe that avoiding the hard things somehow makes the day easier. It doesn't. It simply pushes the weight further into your shoulders. Like a lion at the edge of the camp, it grows more terrifying the longer you pretend not to see it. The more you sidestep that task, that conversation, that decision, the larger it looms in your mind. until it consumes your focus and poisons your peace. Not because it's impossible, but because you didn't face it when you were strongest. The answer? Face the lion first. In the quiet of the morning, when the world hasn't yet pulled you in 100 directions, go straight to the thing you least want to do. Look at it. Picture its size. Imagine every part of the process. Let it stand there in your mind, unhidden. Do not blink. Then walk into it. Not slowly, not cautiously, but like someone who understands that clarity without action is just decoration. Ask yourself right now, what am I avoiding? Is it that overdue message you keep pretending isn't urgent? Is it the first workout after weeks of excuses? Is it the honest talk you know you owe to someone close? Is it the first step toward a new life you've only rehearsed in thought but never in movement? Whatever it is, name it. Because what you name, you reclaim. And what you reclaim, you can conquer. You don't need to want to do it. You just need to do it because it must be done. That is the code of the builder, the craftsman, the leader. You don't show up when it's easy. You show up when it's necessary. And the hard things, they are always necessary, not for punishment, but for preparation. Every hard thing you do early in the day is a declaration. I'm in control. It sharpens your spine. It silences your fear. It shifts your momentum forward before doubt has time to wake up. Picture a man sitting at his desk. The room is quiet. The coffee is still hot. In front of him sit 3 letters. One of them he fears. One of them carries weight. One of them is tied to a commitment he's delayed. Others might ignore it until later, but not him. He picks up the first letter, the one he dreads. He opens it. He breathes, and he begins. He doesn't wait for courage to visit him like a guest. He earns courage by moving, by acting, by doing what's hard before his mind has a chance to rationalize delay. That's what separates him. That's what will make this day a victory while others drift through theirs in a fog of postponement. You might think, I'll do it later when I'm more ready. But the truth is, readiness is a trap. There is no perfect moment. There is only now, when you can strike while your mind is clean and the noise is low. You either choose to face the fire when you still have strength, or you wait until it burns you by force. Success favors the one who steps into the struggle before the struggle has time to grow. It favors those who say, this is what I've been avoiding. This is what I will face first. Because that action, as small as it may seem, becomes the foundation for everything else. You begin your day with a win, a real win, one that took grit, not chance. And that win sets the tone. It tells your mind, we rise. So the real question is not how busy you are. It's not how much time you have. The real question is this: are you waiting for the right time, or are you stepping into the fire before it consumes you? Because the fire isn't going away, the task won't get easier, the lion won't shrink, but you can get bolder, you can get sharper, you can step into it, strike early, and earn the right to say, I didn't hide today, I led. Remind yourself of what you no longer tolerate. Great lives are not built solely on vision. Vision shows you the mountaintop, yes, but it does not get you there. The climb demands more than dreams. It demands standards, quiet, absolute decisions about what will no longer be permitted in your life. Standards are not goals, they are boundaries, non-negotiables, lines drawn in the sand that say, this version of me ends here. You cannot rise without shedding. You cannot expand without first declaring what will no longer stay. Each morning, before the world reaches for your attention, you must remind yourself not only of where you're going, but of what you've buried. You must remember what version of yourself had to die in order for this new one to breathe. You must recall the mediocrity you've cast out, the weakness you've killed, the excuses you've silenced. This is not a ritual of guilt, it is a ritual of honor. You honor your evolution by protecting it. You don't wake up powerful by default. You wake up neutral, and it is your standards that steer you back into strength. Say it aloud, not in passing but with certainty. I no longer tolerate laziness. I no longer entertain small talk when purpose calls. I no longer stay quiet when truth must speak. These are not affirmations. They are commandments. They are the voice of your higher self refusing to negotiate with the habits of your lesser self. Most people fail to grow because they try to evolve without letting go. They try to rise while dragging yesterday behind them. They want to reach the next level without exiling the traits that chained them to the last one. But you can't climb with the past strapped to your back. The ladder of progress doesn't hold two versions of you, the one you were and the one you're becoming. You must choose, and once you've chosen, you must protect that choice. Standards are like castle walls. They don't just keep weakness out, they keep strength in. But even the strongest wall requires maintenance. Daily reminders, constant vigilance. If you don't reinforce your standards every morning, the world will find a way to erode them. Not all at once, but piece by piece. A little compromise here, a little excuse there, and before you know it, the version of you that once burned with discipline is flickering again. So you must guard what you've exiled. You must remember what you've buried. Think of the man who once drank every night. It started slowly, just a drink here and there. But over time it grew. He began to feel the grip of it on his health, on his family, on his sense of self. Then one morning he woke up early. The house was still. His children were asleep in the next room. And something inside him rose. He walked to the mirror, looked himself in the eye, and said, "No more." That moment did not come with fanfare. No one applauded. No spotlight crowned his head. But it was a funeral for the man he refused to be any longer. And since that day, every morning, he passes that same bottle on the shelf. He sees it. He feels it call. But he whispers, "Not today." That whisper may seem small, but it is mightier than any shout, because it is repeated, because it is honored, because it remembers the moment he chose. This is how strength is built, not just in a moment of resistance, but in a lifestyle of remembrance. You do not become powerful by making one good decision. You become powerful by honoring that decision every day. So what about you? What mediocrity did you bury? Was it the version of you that complained more than he created? Was it the identity that waited to be chosen instead of becoming the one who chooses? Was it the voice that said, "I'm not ready," or "maybe someday," or "let's wait a little longer"? That voice is not yours anymore. That version is gone, or at least it should be, but only if you're guarding its grave. You don't need a crowd to watch you transform. You need conviction. Quiet, personal, unshakable conviction. You need to wake up and declare what is no longer welcome in your life. Because if you don't, old habits will sneak back in, wearing new clothes, pretending they've changed. They haven't. They've just become more persuasive. That's why your morning matters. It is not just the start of the day. It is the recommitment to your becoming. And becoming is hard. It's uncomfortable. It demands friction. But if you have standards, true, unflinching standards, they will hold you upright when your feelings try to drag you down. And when life pushes back, as it always does, those standards become your sword. You fight not to prove anything to the world, but to stay loyal to the version of you that made the oath. You remember, I once promised myself I would never go back. That promise is sacred. And sacred things are never treated casually. So ask yourself now, with brutal honesty, what did you bury yesterday? What version of yourself did you leave behind because it was no longer worthy of the life you're building? And more importantly, are you guarding its grave? Or are you quietly letting it rise again? The world will test your boundaries, but your standards will decide your destiny. Don't just set them. Defend them every single day. View the day before it begins. The greatest generals win battles before they're fought, not through brute strength or last-minute strategy, but through preparation. The greatest minds don't react when the storm arrives. They've already built the shelter before the clouds appeared. This is the mindset of those who rise above chaos. This is how you must live, not by guessing, not by hoping, but by rehearsing. Before the day begins, before the world demands your focus, before pressure knocks, you must run through your day in your mind and master it before it starts. This is not worry. This is not fear disguised as planning. This is readiness. Worry asks, what if something goes wrong? Readiness declares, if something goes wrong, I'll be ready. The two could not be further apart. One drains your energy before the challenge even arrives. The other sharpens your focus so that when it does arrive, you respond, not with panic, but with purpose. Every morning, walk through your day like a commander, surveying the battlefield, not to dread the fight, but to know the terrain. Picture every hour. See where your time is going. Spot the moments where resistance will rise. Will it be during the cold morning when you're tempted to stay in bed 10 minutes longer? Will it be in the afternoon when your energy dips and your mind wanders toward distraction? Will it be in a conversation that always tests your patience or a task that feels heavier than it is? Don't pretend these cracks don't exist. Anticipate them. Strengthen them. Most people walk into their day blind. They wake up, move on autopilot, and let the hours unfold however they may. Then they're surprised when emotions hijack their decisions. They're shocked when distractions win. But you are not most people. The prepared are never surprised. They do not flinch when stress arrives because they've already met it in their mind. They've already spoken to their weakness, already decided how to hold their ground. This is how composure is built, not in the moment of pressure, but before it. You rehearse your response when things are calm so you can move with grace when things are not. You walk into the challenge already wearing your armor. You don't yell when someone tests you. You breathe. You don't freeze when a task overwhelms you. You break it down and act. You are not waiting to see who you will be today. You've already chosen. Picture a shopkeeper preparing his space before the dawn. The streets are still dark. There's no knock at the door, no rush in the air. But he's awake. He counts his coins. He checks his inventory. He sweeps the floor. He lights the lamp. By the time the first customer arrives, he's not scrambling. He's ready. There is no anxiety in his body, no confusion in his eyes, because he took ownership of the day before it asked anything of him. That's who you must become. Preparation is not just about logistics, it's about behavior. You must become a master of your schedule, yes, but more than that, you must become a commander of your behavior. You don't just plan your tasks, you plan your reactions. You plan your posture, you plan your mindset. You don't ask yourself, what will today throw at me? You ask, how will I carry myself regardless of what today brings? You know the weak spots. You know where you tend to fall. Maybe it's when you're hungry, or when you're tired, or when you feel unseen. You know the voices that start to whisper when the day gets hard. You can skip this once. You've earned a break. You're too tired to keep going. That's not your soul speaking. That's your old self. Soft, comfortable, aimless. You prepare for that voice. You rehearse your counter. You say, I know this moment is coming. When it does, I won't fold. I'll step in stronger. You don't walk into a storm wondering whether your roof will hold. You reinforce it beforehand. You don't walk into the heat of the battlefield wondering if you brought your sword. You sharpened it at dawn. That's what your morning mental rehearsal is. It's the sharpening, it's the sweeping, it's the silent discipline that builds visible strength. You must not stumble into your day wondering what might happen. You must stride into it knowing exactly how you'll respond. That kind of certainty isn't arrogance, it's responsibility, it's maturity, it's leadership of the highest order. Because when you lead yourself well, you can lead others well. And the world needs more of that. So take a moment before each day begins. Sit quietly. Run through it. Visualize the traps. Name the pressures. Prepare your response. Decide who you will be before anything asks you to prove it. That's how the most composed people are born. That's how days are conquered before they even begin. And now ask yourself, will today surprise you, or will you walk into it as if you already conquered it? If you've done the work, mental, emotional, strategic, then today holds no fear for you. Because no matter what it brings, you've already been there. In your mind, in your spirit, in your preparation. That is how victory is earned before the battle begins. And that is how you rise, deliberately, daily, and without surprise. Train your mind to obey your first command. Your strength does not come from how much you know. It doesn't come from how many books you've read, how many goals you've written down, or how many ideas live inside your head. Strength comes from one thing, how quickly you act on what you already know. Knowledge is potential. Action is power. And in that small space between decision and movement, between command and execution, your character is either built or broken. Every morning your mind tests you. It whispers with the softness of comfort, the seduction of delay. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply suggests, later, later you'll rise. Later you'll focus. Later you'll start the thing you said mattered. And if you listen, if you let that suggestion turn into your reality, you've already lost the first battle of the day. Not because the task was hard, but because the command wasn't followed. And that's how weakness grows. Quietly, moment by moment, decision by decision, delay by delay. But you must reverse that habit. You must train yourself to obey your first command, like a soldier standing at attention, like a warrior who understands that discipline is not about doing things when they feel right, it's about doing them when they're commanded. When you say get up, you get up. When you say begin, you begin. No conversation, no internal debate, no second voice dragging you back into the swamp of hesitation. Because every time you hesitate, you train your brain to disobey you. You teach it that your word doesn't matter, that it can wait, that it can question your authority. And that training is deadly, not instantly, but over time. It chips away at your edge. And when the real moments come, the moments that matter, you won't have the sharpness to act. You'll hesitate. You'll stall. You'll blink when you need it to strike. But every time you act instantly, every time you respond without waiting, you reinforce strength. You sharpen your edge. You condition your mind to obey you, to move with power, to become aligned with intention. You begin to trust yourself because your actions match your words. That trust becomes your internal steel. It's what gives you confidence, not because everything is easy, but because you've proven to yourself that when you say go, you go. Start small. Don't wait for the big moments. Big moments are built on small ones. When you rise, make your bed, without thinking. Don't stretch it out. Act. When you plan to read, open the book immediately. Don't check your surroundings. Don't light the candle. Don't curate the mood. Just begin, because it's not about the task, it's about the response. The act of obedience, the discipline of alignment. You are not just building habits. You are building a soldier, and that soldier is you. Imagine a blacksmith at his forge. The fire roars, the metal glows. He doesn't wait until he feels ready to strike. He doesn't pause to question his timing. He knows the truth. Strike while it's hot, or lose the form forever. That moment of heat, that narrow window, is opportunity. Delay ruins it. Hesitation bends the blade in the wrong direction. And so he moves. Swift, certain, unapologetic. You are the blacksmith. Your life is the forge. Your decisions are the hammer strikes. Your hesitation, that's how the edge dulls. Strength is not loud. It doesn't need to be. The strongest people aren't the ones who make noise about their goals. They're the ones who move, without needing to explain, without waiting for approval, without performing confidence. They become it through repetition. They don't spend time convincing themselves to do what must be done. They've trained so well that the doing is automatic. This is the training you must embrace, not someday, today. And it begins not with massive changes, but with small acts of obedience. Can you tell yourself, go and go? Can you say, now and move now? Can you give yourself a direction and follow it like it came from someone you respect? That's the secret. You must begin to respect your own commands, to treat them like sacred orders from a higher self, because they are. Your higher self isn't a concept. It's a voice that speaks through intention, through clarity, through vision. And when you disobey it, you shrink, not visibly, but inwardly. You dull your light. You hollow out your own confidence. But when you obey that voice, immediately you rise. You grow. You become solid. And soon, others notice. Not because you told them about your discipline, but because it begins to radiate off you. You walk differently. You speak differently. You carry the weight of someone who acts, not someone who only dreams. So stop measuring your potential by what you know. Start measuring it by how fast you obey your own truth, because the distance between I should and I did is where your life is being written. Make that distance short, ruthlessly short. No more waiting, no more internal courtroom, only action. And now, the question that cuts deeper than any, when you give yourself a command, do you obey or do you delay? The answer, in time, will become your future. Let it be built on obedience, not hesitation. Let it be forged in motion, not debate. Move, strike, trust, train, and in doing so, become unbreakable. Center yourself in silence before the world speaks. Noise is the enemy of clarity. It doesn't always scream, it seeps. It whispers through alerts, news, obligations, voices that are not your own. And if you are not vigilant, if you do not carve out a sacred space for silence, your day begins not from power, but from pressure. Before the sun rises and the world begins to shout, before the demands, the chatter, the needs, you must return to stillness, even if only for a few minutes, even if your body aches to move. You must resist the pull to begin doing and practice the rare discipline of simply being. This is not laziness. This is not inaction. This is not meditation in the modern decorative sense. This is recalibration. It is the stillness that sharpens the blade before it swings. Just breath, just presence, just awareness. No dialogue, no checklist, no rush. You are not there to fix anything. You are not there to prove anything. You are simply there to arrive in your own life, fully, completely, and without interference. Most people never notice how loud their lives are, not because the world is always yelling, but because their minds never stop moving. They wake up and launch directly into motion. Emails, noise, breakfast, expectations, decisions. The machine starts running before the engine has even warmed. But here's the truth. Without silence, the soul shrinks. Without stillness, decisions lose power. You might still take action, you might still get things done, but they will come from reaction, not direction. This quiet doesn't waste time. It restores it. It gathers all the fragments of your mind, scattered by yesterday's chaos and tomorrow's worry, and returns them to one place, your center. And from that place, you remember. You remember who you are, what matters, where you're going, and what can be left behind. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. In fact, silence is often the only time something real is happening, something deep, something strong, something that doesn't show up in metrics, but shapes the course of everything that follows. You don't go to silence to escape the world. You go there to face it fully, to meet it on your own terms, not flinching, not scrambling, not pretending, but anchored, clear, calm, ready. The man or woman who begins the day in silence moves through the world with a different gravity. They don't react to noise, they watch it. They don't chase answers, they wait for the right question to rise from within. They don't fear conflict. They've already faced the war inside, and they've made peace with it. Picture a farmer standing at the edge of his land in the early hours. The fields are still cloaked in mist. The soil is wet with the breath of dawn. No machinery roars. No voices speak. He holds no tool. He doesn't move. He just watches. He listens, and in that moment of stillness, barefoot on the earth, breath calm in his chest, he gathers something no machine can measure: strength, presence, leadership. He knows that in a few moments, the animals will stir, the workers will arrive, the sky will rise, but he must rise first. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually. He stands in silence, not to delay the work, but to prepare for it, because the strength to steer the beasts, to weather the storms, to lead others, it does not come from noise, it comes from this still moment before the world begins. You must become like that farmer, not in trade, but in temperament. You must begin each day by standing still long enough to remember. Before the voices outside tell you who to be, before your calendar tells you what to do, before opinions, obligations, and the weight of the day press against your spine, you must return to your own name, your own mission, your own inner voice, which never shouts, but always knows. There is a version of you that can only be reached through quiet. It cannot be summoned in the rush. It will not compete with noise. It only shows up when the dust settles and the room inside your mind becomes still. And once it arrives, you'll see the difference. Your breath deepens, your thoughts untangle, your pace slows, but your precision sharpens. You speak less, but with more meaning. You do less, but accomplish more. Because you're no longer driven by chaos, you're moved by clarity. So ask yourself honestly, how does your morning begin? Do you rise straight into the fray, battling tasks before you've even armed yourself? Or do you carve a pocket of quiet, a moment to remember who commands this life? Your morning is not just the start of the day. It's the foundation of everything that follows. A cracked, chaotic foundation cannot support a strong structure, but a still, focused beginning, it can carry the weight of the world with grace. This is your opportunity, every single day. Before the noise, before the headlines, breathe, be, even for 2 minutes, even in the dark. Anchor yourself, not in what the day wants from you, but in what your soul needs to stand strong within it. Because in the end, the strongest lives are not built in reaction. They are built in remembrance, and remembrance begins in silence. So now the question is yours to answer. Will your morning be built in chaos or anchored in quiet strength? Touch what you're building. Don't just think about it. Ideas are easy. Thinking is safe. Inside your mind, you can be brilliant. Inside your mind, everything works. The book is perfect. The business flows. The muscles grow. The lines of code hum. But none of it is real, not yet. Because thought is only the seed. Creation begins not in the head, but in the hands. The moment you touch your craft, physically, directly, without delay, you remind yourself of the truth: I am not here to daydream. I am here to build. There's a sacred window in the morning. Before the world's noise arrives, before the first text, before the urgency of others starts knocking, it's quiet, still, yours. And what you do in that window matters. It sets the tone. It tells your spirit what kind of day this will be. So reach for your tools. Lay your hands on the work. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. Now. even if it's just for 5 minutes, even if you're still tired, even if your effort feels clumsy or small. That first physical act is not about progress. It's about ownership. You touch your notebook. You place fingers on the keys. You edit the draft. You stretch your limbs. You run a brush across canvas. You open your code and scan one line. You pick up the hammer. You move the needle. It doesn't matter if you complete something. Completion is not the ritual. Initiation is. You are anchoring yourself to your identity. You are reminding your mind and body, this is who I am. This is what I do. Your hands are not just for labor. They are for reminder. They are the bridge between intention and existence. Because when your hands meet the task, your spirit rises. It wakes up. It says, yes, I remember now. I remember why I started. I remember that this matters. That touch, that movement, that first imperfect step, that's where fire returns. Most people start their day with planning, reviewing, thinking, and those things have their place. But there's a danger in letting thought stand alone, because thought, unacted upon, becomes fog. It clutters your clarity. It builds false confidence. You feel busy, but you've created nothing. You feel motivated, but you've moved nowhere. That's how entire weeks vanish, trapped in the comfort of preparation. But when you act, when you touch your work, that fog lifts, the pressure dissipates. You're no longer at the edge of the pool, you've stepped in. And something changes when you make that choice. Hesitation loses its grip. Doubt has less room to speak. You don't need to finish the race, you just need to take the first stride. Because once you move, momentum follows. Think of a painter before dawn. The house is silent. The world's still asleep. He sits in front of the canvas, not to complete a masterpiece, but to begin. He dips the brush. He lays one stroke. That stroke is enough. It roots him, anchors him, says, you're no longer just imagining, you're doing. And in that stroke, in that motion, he transitions from thinker to builder, from dreamer to creator. That's the power of touch. You must build the habit of beginning, not in your mind, but in your body. The physical world is where results live. That's where change is visible. That's where the book gets written, the body gets trained, the business gets shaped. And that's where fear begins to lose its edge, because it only thrives in inaction. This is not about perfection. This is not about getting everything right. It's about setting a tone of movement. You don't need a perfect morning. You don't need to execute every detail of your plan. You just need to pick up the tool and use it, to let your body remember what your mind already knows. 5 minutes with your craft is worth more than 50 minutes thinking about it. 5 minutes moving is worth more than an hour planning how to move. Because action, even tiny, even awkward, is the antidote to hesitation. It breaks the trance of inertia. It reminds you that you are capable, not someday, but now. So ask yourself, will this morning begin with more thought or with touch? Will you float through plans and concepts, or will you touch the thing you claim to love? Will you wait for motivation, or will you reach for the work before it has a chance to scare you? Your tools are waiting. The keyboard, the sketch pad, the barbell, the strings, the spreadsheet, the silence, the space. They're waiting for you, not to be perfect, but to be present. Because this is the truth. You become who you are through motion. And every time you touch your work, you cast a vote for the version of you who does not hide behind potential. Let others stay in thought. Let them organize their planners and rewrite their to-do lists. You pick up your brush, strike one key, write one sentence, take one breath, and begin. Your future is not built in your head, it's built with your hands. So begin now, touch your craft, and become real. Ask the one question that cuts through everything. Each day arrives like a wave. Powerful, noisy, full of demands. Messages flood in, responsibilities tug at you, distractions whisper for attention, and before you've taken a breath, you're being pulled in 100 directions. It's easy to believe that success is about doing more, covering more ground, answering every call. But the truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Your job is not to do more. Your job is to do what matters. And the fastest way to find what matters, ask the one question that cuts through the noise like a blade. What would the strongest version of me do right now? Not the most comfortable version, not the clever one with excuses wrapped in logic, but the strongest version. The one forged in vision, discipline, and truth. That version doesn't chase convenience. It doesn't settle for distraction. It acts in alignment with purpose, not impulse. This question rewires your day. It interrupts the slide into autopilot. It arrests the quiet drift toward mediocrity. It sharpens every choice, not by adding complexity, but by removing confusion. Because it doesn't ask what feels good, it asks what builds me. And that subtle difference changes everything. Ask it when you wake, before the world places its demands on you. What would the strongest version of me do right now? Would they stay in bed a few more minutes or get up and face the day with power? Ask it when you dress. Are you wearing what's easy or what makes you walk with presence? Ask it when you eat. Are you feeding your body or feeding a craving? Ask it when you choose your first task. Are you tackling what moves the needle or hiding in busy work? And don't just ask the question, act on the answer. Because knowing what the strongest version of you would do means nothing if you won't follow through. You must treat the answer not as a suggestion, but as an order. Not from someone else, but from the future you're becoming. Imagine a man standing at a fork in a dirt road. One path leads uphill, steep, uneven, quiet. The other winds lazily downward, wide and easy. For a moment he hesitates. He knows the downhill road will be faster, easier, familiar. But then he hears the question echo in his mind. What would the strongest version of me do? And with that, he turns uphill. Not because it's pleasant, not because he wants to suffer, but because that path, though harder, is the path of growth, of sharpening, of becoming. He chooses it not with excitement, but with conviction. That question can become your compass, your internal guide through the fog of modern life. But it only works if you dare to answer it honestly, if you are willing to face the answer without flinching. Because often that answer will cost you something. It will cost you comfort, convenience, and false ease. But what it gives you in return is power. And more than that, self-respect. The strongest version of you isn't a fantasy. It's not some distant figure living in a future you can't reach. It's a part of you, quiet, waiting, watching. And every time you choose strength over comfort, it steps forward. It gains ground. It takes root. You do not build that version through theory. You build it through repetition, through asking the question again and again, in the small, invisible moments, when no one is watching, when no one would blame you for the easy choice, when no one would notice if you gave half effort or quietly quit. Those are the moments where strength is either forged or forgotten. And here's the truth. Most of your day is made up of these small moments. The decision to send the message you've been avoiding. The moment you decide whether to speak truth or stay silent to keep the peace. The question brings you back to yourself. It slices through the fog of indecision. It demands clarity. It also removes the mask of victimhood. Because when you ask, what would the strongest version of me do? You are taking responsibility. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstance. You're no longer negotiating with weakness. You're stepping into agency, into authorship. You're saying, I choose my actions, not my feelings, not my fears. And over time, that choice becomes identity. You stop being someone who has to ask the question because you become the answer. People start to feel it when you walk into a room. Not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. You're not drifting, you're not guessing. You are someone who has asked the hard questions and answered them with action. So ask it now as the day begins. What would the strongest version of me do? Would they complain or create? Would they hesitate or begin? Would they indulge or prepare? Would they numb out or face the work? The answer isn't always easy, but it is always clear. And clarity is a rare and sacred thing in a world built on distraction. Today we'll try to pull you in 100 directions. It will offer you shortcuts. It will whisper to you about comfort, about later, about next time. But in those moments, you have a weapon, a compass, a voice that rises above the noise. What would the strongest version of me do? Ask it, answer it, and act like your future depends on it, because it does. Recommit to the mission, as if you were starting over. Time wears down passion. Even the brightest flame, left unattended, dims. Even the noblest mission can grow dull if it's not rekindled. That's why each morning, before the noise, before the pull of urgency, before the excuses whisper in your ear, you must recommit, not casually, not half-heartedly, but fiercely, deliberately, and aloud. You cannot assume that yesterday's fire will carry into today. Passion is not permanent. Hunger fades. Memory slips. The emotional charge that once set your heart ablaze will weaken under the weight of repetition and routine, unless you actively reignite it. You have to speak it, declare it, own it. Each day, before the world tries to wear you down again, you must return to the mirror, to the page, to your mission, and say, I still want this. I still choose this. I'm willing to suffer for this again. That act, small in time but massive in meaning, is the mark of a finisher. It's not the loud, dramatic gesture that wins. It's the quiet, daily decision to stay in the fight. Most people don't fail because their dream was foolish or unrealistic. Most fail because they forget what it felt like to begin. They forget the spark, the hunger, the promise they made to themselves when they were still filled with fire. So they drift, they slow down. They start to say things like, maybe it's not meant to be. But the truth is, they simply forgot. And when memory fades, momentum dies. But not you. You come back, you report for duty like a soldier, not because it's easy, not because it's thrilling, but because the mission still matters. You don't hide from the cost. You face it. You re-enter the battlefield with eyes open, fully aware of what this dream demands, and you say, I'm still willing. That is strength. That is maturity. That is the power of recommitment. Picture a mason standing before a half-built cathedral. There is no applause, no crowd, just him, his tools, and another stone. He kneels. He places the next brick with care. From the outside, it looks like nothing, like progress too slow to matter. But inside his mind lives a vision, towering spires, grand halls, stained glass catching morning light. He sees it all, not because it's in front of him, but because he remembers. That memory fuels him. That memory makes one more brick worth it. This is what you must do. Your work, whatever it is, may not always feel glorious. Some days will feel dull. Some days you will wonder if it's moving fast enough, if it's worth the sacrifice. But that's exactly why you return to the why. Why did you start? Who did you swear to become? What dream did you once call sacred? Repetition without emotion dies. Going through the motions turns builders into wanderers. But repetition with conviction, that's what builds cathedrals. That's what creates mastery. That's what separates those who finish from those who stall. Don't just continue. Don't just clock in. Don't just keep going out of habit or guilt or fear of starting over. Recommit. Take a breath and speak your vow again. Say it with energy. Say it with eyes forward. You're not the same person who started this path. You're stronger, wiser, tougher, but you still need to choose it. Not just once, but every day, because choice is power. And when you reclaim the choice, you reclaim your fire. No matter how tired, no matter how slow the progress has felt, no matter how many setbacks you've faced, the moment you choose your path again, you renew your authority over it. Yes, discipline matters. Yes, systems matter. But beneath all of that is a heart that wants it. And if that desire fades, the structure collapses. So tend to it, feed it, speak to it. Remember why you ever dared to begin. This is not weakness. This is not fragility. This is how the strong endure. They don't just survive, they reignite. They don't just repeat the action, they reclaim the meaning. So the question is not, are you still going? Many people keep going, they stay in the routine, they hit the deadlines, but they've forgotten the soul behind the work. They're continuing, but they are no longer committed. Ask yourself with honesty and courage, are you merely continuing or are you recommitting? Because there's a difference between moving and marching, between working and building, between routine and ritual. That difference is fueled by emotion, by intention, by the fire you choose to relight each morning before the world tells you who to be and what to fear. Before you answer, before you act, return to the mission, return to the why, not in your head, but in your heart. Out loud. Let your own voice remind you, I still want this. I still choose this. I'm willing to suffer for this again. That's not weakness. That's warriorhood. That's how greatness is forged. Not in moments of passion, but in mornings of decision. So don't just continue today. Recommit. Strengthen one weakness, even if it's small. Every person carries a weakness. Not always obvious, not always loud. Often it hides in the corners of your behavior, in the hesitation before a decision, the irritation in your voice when things don't go your way, the moment you reach for distraction instead of discipline. These weaknesses are subtle, often easy to excuse, and easier still to ignore. But here's the truth. What you ignore grows. Weakness doesn't vanish with time. It multiplies in silence. It feeds off inattention. And over weeks, months, years, it becomes a weight that bends the strongest backs. The difference between those who rise and those who collapse isn't whether they have weaknesses. Everyone does. The difference is what they do with them. Most people pretend they're fine. They stack new goals on top of old cracks. They pursue bigger visions while hoping the foundation beneath them flawed, neglected, slowly rotting, somehow holds. But deep down, they know. They know there's a spot they've been avoiding, a behavior they've justified, a pattern they've labeled just who I am. And that's how the cracks deepen. That's how the house falls. But you choose differently. Each morning, you do something most never do. You turn toward the shadow. You shine a light on it, not to shame yourself, but to strengthen yourself. You choose one small weakness, just one, not the whole structure, not every flaw, one beam, one joint, one edge that's begun to dull, and you apply pressure, not out of panic, but with consistency, with discipline, with the quiet conviction that today, in this one place, you will not slip. It might be your patience. You've snapped too easily. So today, you breathe when the fire rises. You speak slower, you hold your line. It might be your posture. You've been collapsing inward, letting your body signal defeat before your mind even has a chance to focus. So today, you stand taller, shoulders back, chin level. It might be your attention. You've been floating, letting your focus drift. So today, you catch yourself when your mind wanders. You bring it back again and again. This is not glamorous work. No one applauds you for fixing what isn't visible, but this work is real, and it builds something no external praise ever can. Inner confidence, not because you are flawless, but because you are aware, because you are the kind of person who notices the crack and moves toward it, not away from it. Picture a carpenter standing in a quiet room, sunlight filtering through wooden beams. The structure looks solid. Everyone else says it's good enough. But he walks the perimeter, places his hand on one post, taps it with the back of his knuckles, listens. There's a hollow sound, a small give. He frowns. This one needs replacing, not because it's broken today, but because he knows what time does to weakness left alone. He doesn't wait for the wall to collapse. He acts now, quietly, decisively. That's what you must become. A quiet craftsman of your own strength, a builder who doesn't chase the showy additions until the frame is reinforced. It is harder, yes, it is slower, but it is the only path that lasts. This habit, this daily turning inward, is not about perfection. It's not about self-criticism. It's about integrity, about becoming the kind of person who trusts their own footing because they've tested it, they've repaired it, they've earned it. When you do this day after day, you don't just walk taller, you move differently. You don't flinch under pressure because you've already faced pressure in the mirror. Most will never do this. They will chase results. They will shout about progress, but deep down, they will know what they've ignored. And that knowing, however hidden, will haunt their confidence. You don't need to scream about growth, you need to live it. And living it begins with asking the hard question, where have I been slipping? Not to punish yourself, but to reclaim yourself. Because this is the truth, if you don't fix the small cracks now, life will split them wide open later. The temper you ignore will wreck your relationships. The laziness you justify will cost you opportunity. The pride you hide will keep you from learning. The hesitation you excuse will steal your momentum. But if you face even one of them today, one moment of honesty, one act of correction, you've changed your trajectory. You've strengthened something inside that others never touch. So before you move into the noise of the day, before the world pulls you in a dozen directions, stop. Take one breath, look inward, find the quiet place that's begun to weaken, and act. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to shout about it. You just need to begin with one flaw, one beam, one shadow. You are not weak because you have flaws. You are strong because you face them. So ask yourself now, with no mask, no excuse, what small crack will I strengthen today before it becomes a break? Then go. Tap the beam. Test it. Replace it. Because what you fix in silence becomes the strength that speaks for you. Start before you're ready, every single day. Readiness is a lie comfort tells the fearful. It's the soft voice that says, just a little more time. It's the quiet excuse that dresses itself as wisdom. But it's not wisdom, it's delay. Most people begin their mornings by organizing their tools, reviewing their goals, imagining the day ahead. They convince themselves this is preparation, but what they're really doing is stalling. They're waiting for the spark, for clarity, for energy, for something external to give them permission to begin. But greatness doesn't wait. Greatness moves. It starts in motion, not in motivation. It doesn't need the right mood. It doesn't wait for the clouds to part or the fears to fade. It takes the first step. Cold, uncertain, unglamorous. Because those first steps, awkward as they may be, generate the very readiness everyone else is waiting for. Each morning, you must teach yourself this truth. Movement creates readiness, not the other way around. Action precedes motivation. Motion births momentum. If you sit around waiting to feel ready, you'll find yourself sitting at the edge of your life, watching it pass. The moment will always be just ahead, never now. This is how you take back control, not by mastering every detail in advance, but by becoming the kind of person who acts before they feel qualified. The kind of person who trusts movement over mood, before the doubt clears, before the plan is perfect, before the path is paved. Picture a man staring at a blank page. His chest is flat, his mind fogged. He feels nothing, no spark, no inspiration. But instead of retreating, he writes one sentence. It's not brilliant, it's not perfect, but it's a beginning. And from that one line, the hand starts moving, the mind starts following, the fire returns, and the work begins not because he was ready, but because he started. So the question is not whether you feel ready. The question is, what will you begin today, not because